Hello and welcome to Digital Coffee. I'm your host, Adrian Kogier, and this is episode 3, Google is Watching You. Alright guys, so today is Tuesday, for me anyways, August 5th. That'll be Monday for you guys stateside when this gets up and uploaded to the interwebs. This is episode 3 of Digital Coffee. I am enjoying a cup of, oh my god, I just forgot, I just threw away the wrapper, but it's instant today, but a dark roast of coffee here and some peanuts and chips. I don't know, just a little snack to go about my morning. Lots of news this week, lots of stuff rounded up, and I want to kind of start off with some Apple news and some news that isn't, I don't know, it's always hard to call rumors and leaks news, but nonetheless I do report on them. And this is a post that just went up on DigitalDojos about the iPad Air second generation parts being leaked, so let's just jump right into the news, I guess. As you guys know, iPad Air is the current iPad, I guess you can say generation. They kind of skipped, the whole naming convention, just went with iPad Air. It's thinner, it's lighter, it's all that good stuff. It's faster. It's the full-size iPad. Now, there's been a lot of rumors whether or not Apple is going to go with a Pro version of an iPad, a bigger kind of 12-inch display or whatever it may be. But as of right now, there were parts leaked for the iPad Air second generation from a Taiwanese factory that showcased new speaker grill. It showcased a thinner profile on the metal, a new camera hole and mic replacement, so I believe the microphone is now right next to the camera on the rear-facing end. And overall, it's just a much more, it's the same kind of aluminum, casing and that we're all used to, but we've also seen rumors leaked of the Touch ID finally being integrated into the iPad. There's a lot of talks about why it wasn't in the previous ones after the iPhone 5S came out, but there was just speculation that they couldn't fit the whole fingerprint reader into the iPad. So most likely, if they're going to do it on the Air, we're going to see that on the Mini as well. So they're just kind of unify their line with that Touch ID, which, in all honesty, is one of my favorite additions to the 5S. I have a 5S. It's my daily driver. In terms of hardware feature, aside from the camera and all that, the Touch ID is one of my most things I think that I benefit from day-to-day use. So again, you can see these pictures here of the iPad second generation. It's going to be a little bit thinner. Obviously, there's nothing you can say about the whole weight and all of that. These are just all leaks and pictures coming from the factory assembly line. I think it's actually an accessory. Typically, you'll see accessory manufacturers leak these pictures because ahead of schedule, Apple will give them the dimensions and all of that so they can generate cases, all that good stuff. So yeah, definitely worth checking out. You guys can see the leaked pictures, but I mean, overall, as far as anything with any upgrade, it's you don't need rumors to tell you that the device is going to be faster, the device is going to feature new hardware. I mean, that's pretty much a given. It's just the form factor and other new features that are going to be integrated that is never, certain. And with all rumors, again, nothing is confirmed until Apple officially announces the iPad Air second generation. So look forward to that. All right, next story is one that's been making its ways all around this week, and that's because Google caught a sex offender over the weekend with a Gmail scan. So a story that obviously from the title sounds good. Catching sex offenders is always a good thing, but it raised privacy concerns in the fact that the way it was done was through a Gmail scan. So what this means is basically John Skillern, if I'm not mistaken, a 41-year-old was charged with possessing child pornography after the NCMEC, which is the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, received a tip from Google directly that he had over, I think, 3 pornographic images of children, so that's under the age of 18. Now, the way it found this out was, if you haven't known, it's common knowledge nowadays that Google Gmail, when you opt in, when you sign up for a Gmail account, whatever, it's your personal email, it's your work email, Google scans your emails. And the reason it does this is to get relevant ads, they say, to get relevant information for you. It's the same thing Facebook does. Anytime you're on a site that has a Facebook like button or a thumbs up button, and if you're logged into Facebook, Facebook is gathering data about you to serve you better ads. So if you're looking up BMWs and Mercedes while you're browsing the web, and Facebook knows that, it's going to serve more relevant ads. The same thing with Google, and Google in a bigger sense that Google is your search engine, it's your email, it's a lot of other things. So, according to the article and spokesperson from Google and all that, apparently, obviously, a law was broken, and it requires companies to report anything that's dealing with child pornography if they're to come across it. And apparently, with the way the Google scan found this, as it was going through the email, images, sexual abuse images, and so on and so forth for whether it's pornography or explicit content. They are tagged with these kind of like a digital fingerprint in a sense, especially if they're a part of a honeypot. And a honeypot would be usually where government agencies or whatever will kind of link bait people into downloading these things. So if you download anything that you know is illegal, that in itself, they're like setting you up for, obviously to get caught. So the way this works is they say that this technology was embedded in the imagery. The unique digital footprint was recognized by their systems and identified those pictures, obviously, as child pornography. And from there, they pass it on to the NCMEC again. There you go, National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. They found this guy, and that's all good and well. Another creep off the streets, essentially. And this is something that companies do have to deal with, in a sense. It is a part of the law. But like I said, a lot of people kind of dove into this because Google's terms of service explicitly state that automated systems analyze your content, including your email. So whether that's personal, professional, whatever, they are scanning it, they are watching it. And they're not necessarily having like humans read over each and every individual email. That would be too much. But there is systems out there scanning it. So you want to be careful. You want to be cautious. Obviously, I'm not advising you to skirt the law in this case. If you're doing anything of the mentioned, happened in this article, then you deserve to be fined, thrown in jail, whatever it may be. But, on the other side of the table, I guess, if you are just concerned about whatever, like, maybe you're sending your address or sending something else, this is something you need to take into account, that what you say and what you do is being not monitored in a sense, but scanned. And a lot of people, it's either here or there with targeted ads. I don't mind targeted ads so much. If I'm getting stuff that's relevant to things I like, it's better than getting things I don't like, I guess, in a sense. Like if Facebook and Google and other companies are gathering information about the music and the cars I like and they're serving me ads related to that, I don't so much mind that. And there's ways to opt out of this. There's ways to kind of set up filters, and obviously deleting your account as a whole is always a good measure. You just really got to understand your privacy, what you're entitled to, what you're not, and what you kind of sign up for once you hit that I accept or create account button. So big news story in privacy and legal matters. Definitely worth reading over to see the full case and all of that. But privacy is a thing that matters, and on the internet nowadays, it's a good thing to remember that things you write on the internet are written in pen and not pencil. So it's not just something you can delete and erase. So be wary of that. All right, moving on to the next story. Square, the famous company that is known for their payment system that you can plug in via an iPhone and Android devices to use to pay for anything really. It's a point-of-sale service, basically meaning you can take credit cards, debit cards off of an app on a mobile device, essentially turning your mobile device into a cash register on the go. They have entered the food delivery market with the acquisition of Caviar. Caviar is a startup that delivers high-end meals, like high-end luxury kind of based meals. And they deliver that, obviously. So you can order this. You can go through the process of picking out, a high-end luxury class, if I can talk here, meal and have it delivered to your house. Now, as of right now, TechCrunch reported that this deal valued just about $100 million in the works. There's deals saying about 90 to 100 million, roughly speaking in that term, but which is regardless tons and tons of money. So what this is going to do overall, it's going to provide Square with another service to offer small businesses. Really, it's interesting to see them pick up something like this. But again, it's something that falls in that small business category. And like the article from Mashable says, and there's an airplane flying over right now, so I apologize. But it says Caviar provides Square with another service to offer small businesses, particularly restaurants, as payment companies seek to attract new customers and find new revenue streams. So food startups have obviously been a huge thing in 2013 to 2014. There's a lot of new stuff kind of evolving in the market, a lot of new services. And Caviar now obviously joining a huge network that is Square. And I'm sure they're going to find a way to, move this into restaurants and partners and all of that across different places and states and cities. So it's something interesting to see. Obviously, the CEO behind Square, Jack Dorsey, very, very famously known for Twitter and all of that, as I think has only proved that he knows what he's doing in these spaces. And Square is very, very cool technology, a very cool business. and this acquisition may be something to watch, especially for you users of Caviar out there, to see what Square will do with the food delivery service. All right, let's go on to some gaming news. Something that stuck out to me this week anyway, BioShock, a very, very famous game that has been out for multiple consoles, Xbox, the Sony, I believe the Sony PlayStation Network, and the PC. Wait, was BioShock out for, I don't even know now, actually, if it was out for the PS. Let me make sure. Yeah, okay, it was out for the PlayStation 3, but I remember playing it for the computer, and obviously it came out with multiple, there's BioShock, BioShock 2, published by 2K Games back in 2007. Well, now what they're doing is finally releasing BioShock is going to be coming to the iOS platform. So, tweeted out by 2K themselves, at 2K on Twitter, prepared to return to the rapture. They say BioShock is coming soon to iOS devices, so you guys can actually receive the BioShock games on your iPad and iPhone. There's no current price point on these. Typically, 2K games, there's in this article, they're talking about how you've seen 2K games like XCOM, for example, was released for $20. Typically, when you see games that are very fully featured like this and produced by bigger publishers, they tend to range in the more expensive range. And $20 for a game in general isn't expensive. It's when you're talking about the mobile market, however, iOS, you got to understand that these people are used to paying like $2 to $5, and anything above that is quote unquote expensive to them. But if, in my opinion, everything is going mobile, I mean, I know a lot of people nowadays who have hung up the laptop or the desktop in gaming for experience that's mobile, that's on their iPad, that's on their iPhone, that they can play at any given time in any situation, and they don't need to be upgrading a graphics card or more RAM. Like, it just works on their iOS device. And I see titles like BioShock becoming a big thing on the iOS platform as more publishers realize that not only releasing a console version, but releasing the mobile end version and a fully packed mobile version at that. Sometimes they scale the game down, and obviously they have to accommodate for the touch controls and a slightly different experience for that of an iPad or an iPhone. But nonetheless, if done right, there's a lot of successful ports that we've seen to the mobile end that either kind of reignite that passion to a game or reignite that, popularity in a game title, or just also expose it to people who've never really played BioShock before, or who've never had the capability to play it on. It's an even playing field on the iPad and iPhone. Everybody has essentially, there's difference obviously in the iPhone 5, 5S, 4S, and stuff like that, but for the most part, everybody has a compatible device to play it on. So that's something to look forward to for you gamers out there. Again, BioShock on iOS. All right, another app that has been released and has been I guess you can call it Instagram's competition or Instagram's competitor to Snapchat was Bolt. Bolt was obviously Facebook bought Instagram a while back, and since then there's been talks about a Snapchat competitor. Now Facebook released its own Slingshot application that was supposed to take on Snapchat, but then they went out and released something called Bolt. Bolt is a simple kind of one tap share and post out your photo to a friend. You can take a selfie, you can take a rear-facing camera, but basically the idea behind Bolt being you take it and you send it right away really quickly, eliminating a couple of taps that you would probably have to take on Snapchat. Now, there's a lot of different implementations of this kind of quick send photo service that everybody's doing right now, Slingshot, Snapchat, Bolt, whatever apps are out there. I believe in the philosophy people use what they use, and it's hard to kind of change a market, essentially, or change almost a status symbol. People use Snapchat. People know what Snapchat is. To adapt and get people on Bolt, it's going to take a pretty big initiative. Not to say it's not possible. I mean, the same thing with MySpace to Facebook. Facebook did something different, and that's what these apps really need to focus on. Bolt was originally released in a really, really weird way where they released it in like a couple countries. I think it was like South Africa, Malaysia. They released it on a country-by-country basis, which was really a interesting launch. It wasn't available in the U.S. the first day it was released. I'm sure you can get Bolt available now, but again, it takes a lot to get people to move to this. Now, obviously, if you are a name like Instagram or Facebook, it may make it a little bit easier because you can kind of not force your users, but suggest to your users to use this service or find a way to tie it in with something they already use. But again, it's it comes down to where their friends are, where the people are at. If people are using Snapchat, then people will continue to use Snapchat, and so on and so forth. So you could try it out. I mean, there's always hype for these apps when they come out. I did an overview of Slingshot. I'll link that in the show notes. You guys can check that one out by Facebook. They're all trying to do something different, but they're also trying to copy a model which is already successful on Snapchat. And in my opinion, it's going to be successful on Snapchat until something either really, really revolutionary comes out, or there's some cultural shift where people just decide to stop using Snapchat and move on to whatever the next big thing is. All right, so that said, let's go into some airplane news. Now, this one is going to require me to rant a little bit. Let me get the link open here because I didn't have it ready the first time. But there is word right now that the U.S. is going to be reportedly proposing a ban on in-flight cell phone calls. So essentially, you wouldn't be able to make any cell phone calls on the plane while in the air, essentially. So there's a lot of things that go on when it comes to the federal FCC, the Federal Communications Commission, and flying and all this stuff and using electronics in the air. So first there was the whole thing about recently the TSA, that ruling that you can't bring electronics that aren't charged onto a plane. The reason being because with a heightened, increase in security following 9/11 and obviously coming up to now, terrorism attacks. The idea was that if a device is turned off and the device had no power, that it could be used as like a remote trigger, or it could be housing some sort of bomb or detonator, so that you had to prove a device can be turned on to actually show that it was a working operating device. Now, the ruling that the ban that they're trying to get would essentially stop calls in flight. Now, I don't mind this in the sense that, it causes and stops that annoyance of people talking on an airplane. With somebody on the phone, I guess, because there are people who can just talk and very loudly. But at the same time, I think it's the same thing as if some guy in the front seat of me was talking next to the person, or the person next to him in a loud manner or whatever. I mean, I guess it's hard to argue these type of things. I don't know, we already know that the use of electronics on planes virtually does nothing to really mess up any signals or anything of that. They already eliminated the ban for you to have electronics on the plane or having them in airplane mode. And for the most time, most people would pretend to turn off their device or pretend to put it in airplane mode, or maybe they do put it on airplane mode and still, there's a lot of catching up to do in terms of the culture shift and technology, and what people understand as far as what this really does, because there is that ban that was recently lifted, like I said, that you can have electronics on the plane and have them during takeoff and be using them, and you didn't have to turn them off anymore. And then even if after that people were still advising you to turn them off, but in reality, again, it's this whole idea behind security, behind a theatrical sense of security, in that we set up these implementations to pretend like we're making things more secure in a sense, but I don't know. It's just these things. In this case, I really feel like this ban is just to eliminate annoyance on flights, have people stop talking, even though some flights offer these built-in phone services that you can use, like a phone in your seat that you can call, because most people typically need to use a phone when they're landing or when they're arriving to let whoever know, whoever's picking them up, if there's something that comes up during the flight that they need to contact somebody. That's obviously something that you can probably do with text messages, and that's not a ban right now. I mean, I don't know how I feel about any of these bans or technology limitations when it comes to flights and stuff like that, because like I said, I can see it being an annoyance, but it's the same thing to me as if somebody 2 seats in front of me was talking really loudly to the person next to them, or the baby crying in the front seat. Those are, those could be labeled as annoyances too, but we're not going to set bans on those. So I think it's another security through obscurity type, or a security theatrical sort of ruling that's just kind of being implemented. But yeah, I'd love to hear what you guys think. You guys can leave that down, and if you're watching this on YouTube, feel free to comment on that down below, because that's something I don't know. Whether they pass this rule or not, it's just something that's not going to be enforced. The same way people don't turn off their phones, the same way people aren't going to have devices that are fully charged when they're coming through the gates. Bad things happen, yeah, and I understand that we're trying to beef up the security to prevent these bad things from happening, but again, at the end of the day, bad things always happen regardless if the ifs, ands, or buts about it. All right, last story of the day. Let's end it on some gaming news. EA, Electronic Arts. I wrote an article about this earlier this week, or last week. Electronic Arts has revealed an all-new Xbox One exclusive subscription that will allow players to play some of EA's biggest titles. As of right now, there's Madden NFL, FIFA 14, Peggy 2, and the famous shooter Battlefield 4. Now, the catch behind this, it's only $5 a month or $30 a year, which is a super, super sweet deal in terms of gaming, because I think that this is subscription services is going to be the future of gaming. I like to think you're going to be able to pay a solid fee, much the same and get all you want. Much the same as like Netflix, you pay a solid fee, you get all the content you want. That's a really, really addictive model. It allows people to continue to pay that small fee or that affordable fee and get all the stuff they want, and that allows them to stay hooked. The same thing I think with gaming, and what EA is doing here is going to be a pretty big thing for the Xbox One title, because it's exclusively for Xbox One. So Microsoft has an all-exclusive membership to this, where they'll be able to purchase this via Xbox Live or physical retail stores. They sign up to this membership, they get access to the big EA sports titles and shooter titles. EA's has talked about expanding. Obviously, they're going to be expanding the EA Access gaming library as time goes on. But, I mean, at $5 a month, you pay for a game, you pay for a new game, roughly like, $60 a new title, $60, $70. That's still more. You're paying more to own that game, essentially, than you are paying a year to play multiple games, even if you don't technically own them per se. You're just signing up to subscription services. Additionally, though, if you are a member, you get 10% discounts off of other titles, the EA titles and DLCs that are released in the future. So I mean, you get a discount, you get these games that are in the library, and then if you do want to buy new titles that come out, like I said, you get that 10% discount. So there's nothing. I think this is really these are the form of subscriptions that a lot of people would be willing to subscribe to. Obviously, things like Xbox already charge for membership, like you're paying for that on top of an EA Access membership. But again, if it's like the same thing about Snapchat I was talking about earlier, people play the console where their friends are at. If you want to play on the PlayStation Network, that's free. Oh no, actually, there's a paid service there too. If you want to pay, there's a paid service if you want to sign up to that. But at the end of the day, like that $10 a month or $5 a month is going to be highly worth it if you get to play a whole bunch of games with your friends on these console titles. So I mean, definitely something to look as it grows, and EA Access will definitely add more titles into it. I think this is going to be nothing but successful for EA and Xbox One specifically, since it is an exclusive subscription service. All right, I think that's about it. There are some other articles I posted over at DigitalDojos this week and last week that you guys can check out. Just small little tidbits of technology updates that you guys may be interested in. New like updates on the Apple laptops, some other announcements from some companies. A lot of cool stuff you guys can check out. As always, I appreciate you all for tuning in to this week's episode of Digital Coffee, and I'll catch you all next week.